Steve, there's been a big story out here over the last few days about BYU. The honor code's back in the headlines. Jake Retzlaff is back in the headlines, and I think this has been discussed at length. But I'm curious, as someone who coached at BYU and was in the middle of this, sometimes there's stuff the public knows and stuff the media knows, and sometimes there's stuff they don't. I wonder if you have any perspective to add to this, or if you think the public discussion largely seems pretty informed on what's being talked about on campus right now.
You know, I've had obviously a variety of experiences through this, from being at BYU and being away from BYU, and you know, it's interesting. Things have evolved at BYU, and I don't know how much detail I can get in, because I certainly don't want to. But I know that I had a young man that had an honor code situation. I'm not going to throw names out there. I'm just not going to do that. But it was difficult, because at that time, that you're talking about 1997, 98, the honor code is kind of completely changed in terms of how that's evolved. It's a really difficult situation. I can't speak too much to the past, other than the fact that I had to deal with that with some young men. You know, and most of those things involved you know, the alcohol and some of those types of things. I've never been involved, or certainly in anything like what we're seeing right now. But there seems to be, this is just my perception, and as a former coach, a lot of things are done differently now. And I don't have any idea or thoughts of what's going on with this, but I will just tell you, as I've watched and looked, that there tends to be an attitude from the administration is that we want to work with these young people that have made mistakes. And I'm not specifically talking about this young man, because we can talk about that. I don't know the details, the facts, but as I looked at it, had my own personal experiences, one of the things that I felt was really important, having an honor code, and then how do we deal with honor code, and how do we deal with whatever the infractions are. But I found recently that there's just so much more mercy and opportunity for second chances. And this current circumstance may not be a situation that we're talking about, but being around it, being in it myself, having an opportunity to work with young people and help them get their lives turned around is something I felt that BYU really made some significant changes. It was a very positive thing. And and obviously these things become very public when you're talking about the issues today. But I think BYU has handled it better than they've ever handled it. I just felt like when I first went to BYU, it was kind of a red line there where, hey, if you do this, you do that, you know, you're removed from school, or you're suspended, or whatever the circumstances were. This being out, and those were all kind of very private. You know what I mean? I mean, this is very public, and it's very sensitive. And certainly I'm not an expert on what's going on, and those are legal things, and you guys probably can give me some insights on that. But I do believe that, as I've watched over the years, and I had my own personal experiences, that there just seems to be a different attitude and a different philosophy as far as the honor code is concerned, and working with young people and helping them turn their lives around.
Yeah, I think in this case, not that it's good for the honor code folk, but once the law gets involved, that sort of gets away from the honor code, and then the law has to. You've had some issues, you know, that in the basketball program and football and probably all the sports where it's not against the law, and that's where the honor code comes in, the ecclesiastical stuff, and so they handle it. But at least the way I would think at this point is that BYU, they can do whatever they want in terms of their own investigation, but the law supersedes everything.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I certainly am not informed enough from even how the honor code works today versus what it looks like in the 90s and the early 2000s. I have no idea, to be honest with you. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but I agree, being so public, criminal action, those are things that people are going to have to, you know, get together and decide what's going on and what's the truth and what's not the truth. You know, there's a he said, she said. You got to work through that. I think the key thing when you make decisions like this is be thorough, make sure you have all the facts. What we read in the newspaper or what we hear on the radio or, in the evening news, they have to get deep down into this to make sure that their bases are covered. I'm sure both the young man and the young woman have legal teams and people that are dealing with this and helping them, as well as, what's happening with BYU and the Honor Code. But when you're breaking laws like this, I think that it'll take time. It would be really silly for anybody to jump to conclusions on what's going to happen or not happen. I think you take this one day at a time. You've got great attorneys probably from both sides. Just from looking from the outside to inside, just from the things I've read, if they are true, that I doubt that young man will be in a football uniform for BYU. But, again, not having any of the information other than what I've read in the newspaper or watched on the news. But it's a difficult thing for BYU, the football program, for Kalani, and nobody is better at this than Kalani in terms of his relationship with guys and making sure that they're doing the right things. I mean, he's just been a pillar of strength for that university. So I think between Kalani and, Brian Santiago and all the people that might be involved in this and the league teams, it'll be handled appropriately. It's just really unfortunate to have to kind of deal with this type of thing. It's just really tough. Kind of gave me an ache in my gut, to be honest with you, when you hear about these things and when you don't have maybe all the truth. But it's not good for the perception of any institution, families, or any other circumstances.
And it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case, which reportedly isn't going to be resolved anytime soon. At least that was one lawyer's opinion. So, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. All right, the NBA playoffs continue, Steve, and I am curious if you have seen anything that makes you sure that you know what is going to happen going forward, or if there have just been too many wild games in this playoff and you just have to ride the roller coaster.
I think you're going to have to ride the roller coaster. I'd really like to see a Oklahoma City Indiana Pacers final. Is that possible? I don't know, but it'd just be nice to have different people. It appears that here with the Pacers being in a situation where they're up a game, and I like the way they played. They got the Knicks twice at home, which just surprised me, and then of course the Knicks being in a situation where they beat the Pacers 106-100 the other night. Pacers shot the ball. The Knicks shot the ball a lot better, and they came back from 20 points down. So there might be some life in these Knicks. But just looking at that and seeing Towns, who really stepped up for the Knicks in a big way, obviously 20 of 24 points. He scored, I think he shot, all of a sudden I'm forgetting, but I think, remind me on what Towns' numbers were at the end. It seemed like he had 20 out of 24 points as that game finished up. What were Towns' numbers?
He finished up 24 points, 15 boards, 8 of 17.
And they had more depth in scoring there. Anunoby had 12, Bridges 15, Towns 24. Browns was, the fact that they were able to win that game with Brunson in foul trouble and to be down 20 says something about the resolve of the Knicks. But I still kind of feel like the Pacers are the team that's going to represent the NBA there in the finals.
Sports as a whole is an entertainment product, right? And that's the way I've always viewed it. It ranks rare with movies, music, theater, whatever it is that you're looking to do outdoors. It's a form of entertainment. And I think what the leagues have done very well is they've adapted the rules when you always have these smart people that are looking for advantages and basically loopholes within the rules, and then they try to take advantage of them, and then it becomes stale and fans don't like it. And where I'm going with this is they're saying a lot of SGA as far as him baiting to get fouls and going to the line. And he says, well, wait a second here. And he did shoot the second most amount of free throws in the regular season next to Giannis. And he's saying, I actually had, and I don't know this, but he said this, I haven't looked it up. He said, I've shot more free throws in other seasons. It's just now, it's more of a spotlight because we're in the Western Conference Finals, blah, blah, blah. And so you go on social media and you look at it and people saying something's got to be done. It is an entertainment league, and they've got to make sure that aesthetically it is about pleasing the fan base because that's how everybody makes money. What do you think about him drawing these fouls? I don't necessarily have a problem with him doing it because until something has changed, like Harden used to take that ball, swing it from right to left above the free throw line. Somebody would put their hands in. The next thing you know, he's flailing his arms and he's got 3 free throws. Well, they addressed that, and that was awful. That needed to be addressed. What do you think about him with these fouls? Is it something that the league needs to take care of?
I think the league probably is taking care of it as we speak in terms of looking and watching film. And I don't think the NBA and SGA are going to be involved in conversations about things. But at the end of the day, this is prime time. And no matter what players are always going to complain about fouls and complain about this and complain about that. And do I think that the elite players get calls at times? I watched Michael Jordan get a lot of calls in his day and watching that. So I don't think that's going to go away. You do want to kind of protect. I'm not indicating that the officials start a game and feeling, hey, we're going to have to watch what's going here. But they watch film. I remember many years ago talking to an official that was in the NBA, and the amount of film and the amount of critique of their body of work and things that they do. I know these officials and these officials organizations are very detailed and very much want to get this thing right. And then when you have a guy like SGA who seems to be shooting an inordinate number of free throws, I think they're looking at that. But the bottom line is he has a ball in his hands a significant amount of time. I don't know what percentage of time he's on the floor and how shot selection and not shot selection, but number of shots. But it seems pretty normal to me that an all-star, big time guy that's carrying his Oklahoma City maybe towards an NBA championship, that we understand that that's going to happen. And even though he gets all the attention and he's talking and jabbing, I just can't imagine the officials and the integrity of officials and what's happening there, that he's going to change their mind on something. And to the fact that he has the ball in his hand, has high volume, takes a high volume shots, yeah, he's going to be the guy who gets fouled. He's going to be the guy that makes big baskets. He's going to be the guy that misses big baskets. I don't think it's going to impact officials. I think it does exist. But I think as you look at the playoffs here, there's so much scrutiny right now. As you watch those games, there's replay after replay after replay. If the officials are getting that wrong time and time again, I think they'll self-correct and they take care of that. The greatest players in the NBA day are going to have the ball in their hands. They're going to be in circumstances and situations where they're going to get a lot of calls, good or bad. But I haven't seen anything that really upset me as I've watched the games. He's just a phenomenal player. He's an NBA MVP, and he's got a team right now, a young team that's playing with a lot of confidence. So the win the other night, the 2-point win was incredible, and Randall kind of just disappeared. I mean, I don't even know how that could possibly happen, that he could play that poorly in that kind of situation. But I'm excited about OKC. I'd love to see him in the finals.
I do get your point about the players always going to complain. And honestly, I also think there's just a segment of the public, media, or fans, both of them, who are always going to complain. The thing about SGA and the way he plays, and you're right, he's never taken more three-pointers. He's never taken more shots. It's his second highest free throw total, looking at the numbers right now. But the guy still goes to the rim a lot. And he's not Giannis going to the rim. He's not the Joker. He's not a 7-footer going to the rim. And he will go and he will attack those guys. And it just seems like, well, of course he's going to end up shooting free throws. Now, his three-pointers are trending up, but he still goes and shoots 2-pointers like in a 3-to-1 ratio. So he's not, all he does is shoot three-point shots, guys. So I don't see really how it can change. I don't know how they and man, I didn't know baseball was going to make the bags bigger either. So maybe there's some tweak out there that the NBA is going to do. You know, the NBA, the Major League Baseball pitch clock to me didn't come out of nowhere, but the bags getting bigger, that one surprised me. I just don't know what they're going to do against a guy who's this athletic, who's willing to challenge bigger guys in an era when we want guys to get in the paint and we want more contact and we don't want guys just running up lunch and threes.
No, here's the thing I really like about this situation is that he has the. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. He's gonna shoot the ball more than anybody on the floor, and I think what happens is that his ability to develop and how to get to the rim and get into the paint area and score with mid range, score at the rim, is really unique for a guy that everybody looks at as a 3-point shooter. But the way I look at it is that the 3-point shooting, his ability to shoot the three with such success, is that defenders have to come out and they have to close out and they have to attack and they have to switch. There's so much attention to him being 25 or 30 feet away where it opens and creates space that's why you see him getting to the rim more often because they are so, obviously everyone's really conscious about him knocking threes down. And what's just crazy is I've watched college and high school and NBA, and the fact that 3-point line has gone farther back, and they still continue to shoot with great expertise. But what's happened is opened the floor, and it just gives opportunities. It creates help situations that are very difficult. But that's what makes him so good, is that his ability to shoot from deep places and throughout and around the floor allow him now to really take advantage of guys that have stretched out and shooters on the corners, ready to, kick it to him, kick it to them if he gets stopped. He just makes things really difficult for team defenses. And I think because he's so aggressive and he's been so effective at getting in and around the rim and scoring that it's hard to help. And then now if they have to send two people at him, then somebody else is wide open for a shot. So watching him play has been really fun for me to see how he kind of just takes over games. And he obviously is just shooting the lights out. It's just been fun to watch him. But I think his ability, we're going to see more and more of his ability to break down defenders when there's lots of space and he can create for mid-range. And if they sag off him, obviously, he's going to knock threes down from 30 feet. It doesn't matter what the distance is. He just seems to have great range and a feel for his game and so much confidence. And I think if anything, in my experience of coaching for many years, is as I watch players grow and develop and things I didn't want players to do, but I saw that over time they were effective and they had confidence, I took the reins off and said, you know what, I trust you. And I'm sure this coaching staff trusts him. And it's just made them a better team and really difficult and hard to guard.
Speaking, Cleve, of watching guys who grow and develop, Jalen Williams, the 12th pick out of Santa Clara. We've got his brother on the Jazz, and he had a lousy rookie season, but he's just a kid. He's a young pope, skinny as a rail. He's got to get bigger and all that. Jalen, his older brother, just turned 24 last month, so it's not like he's a old, wily veteran. He's been in the league. This is his third year, and he's really, really blossomed. I think that the difference, maybe if you're looking for a Jazz fan, and that's where I want to go with your thought, do you see any hope as far as him being able to develop like his brother, knowing that I believe his brother stayed 3 years in college, and Cody's a one-and-doner?
I was going to mention that. That was the first thing I was going to mention is that he spent 3 years. I mean, honestly, I remember watching those games in the WCC and when BYU was playing and other games, but I fell in love with Jalen Williams. I mean, I just thought, oh my gosh, this kid is so good, and he's I didn't, when I was watching those games, I didn't think of him as an NBA guy. I was just thinking this is a really good college player, and then I watched him develop and get stronger, and I found myself looking for Santa Clara games when he was in college, and obviously when they were playing BYU, I'd pick up on those. But I looked for opportunities because I was just so impressed on how much better he got. And obviously now he's doing it at the highest level. In terms of, I think the advantages for his brother, younger brother, is that he has a brother who has so much experience, and he surrounded himself with all the, between the training and all of the effort that goes into getting yourself in great shape and getting your body right. When you get to the technical things of being able to how to play this game, I think what a great opportunity for a younger brother to spend time, watch film, talk to his brother, do things that are away from the court. And I got to believe, during the season, they're in the season, and it takes time, and this young man's young. But I can't imagine having an older brother who has taken a career path, not so much in the way they did it in college because he was one and done, but to have a big brother that can help him and help him get through this and navigate this so that, he can develop and get better. And they do. It does take time, but I think it's a great asset for him to have that resource to help him get better, to be able to have an impact for the Jazz or anybody else he plays for.
And he was the very definition of a teenager trying to compete with grown men. You had to look at him for about 3 seconds and think, well, he's got to grow into his body and get stronger and all that. And I think when you look at the playoffs and the teams that have gotten to the conference finals, most of these players most of the elite players were not top 10 picks, and most of them changed teams. Anthony Edwards is different. He was a number 1 pick, and he's with the team that drafted him. But giving up on guys too young, man, it just seems like development in the long game, you gotta play it, or you're going to end up watching somebody that you had who's now 26 somewhere else and crushing it for that team and thinking, should we have stuck with him for a while longer?
I completely agree with you. I got a question for you guys because I think that's a difficult thing. I've wondered where somebody does put in that time and, they get themselves in a situation and then all of a sudden things aren't going well and they get rid of him or they trade him and do things. You get in that trading mode where a player loses confidence. And I think that for me, looking at the pro coaches, and I don't know a lot of them, it's not like I have relationships with them, but there is such support there that I got to believe that behind the scenes, whether it's, working with a kid's mind and his mental approach to it, to his physicality and getting stronger, and then getting his confidence and, playing whether it's playing internationally or playing in a G League or, all the development leagues that there are, that I think the sources are there, the resources are there, that there is an opportunity for a young man like that. It's difficult, and not just with the Jazz, but what is the time frame when you give up on a guy or you trade him? And I guess there's lots of circumstances that would deal with that, with other players and drafts and trades. It can be a little bit convoluted for me in terms of how this is all going to play out. But I do like the fact, I think a big part of having younger players that are physically not ready yet, not strong enough, I think the things you do away from that court to help them get mentally and physically and every other way to have confidence and not lose their confidence. Because you can imagine how many times have we seen guys go in and 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, they're playing in Europe or they're playing somewhere else, and it felt like people gave up on them. But again, I understand management, I understand coaches and GMs, they need it done now. But being patient enough with a player like this to give him a chance, and then, after 2 or 3 years, 4 years, if it's not happening, that individual is going to be traded or playing somewhere else in the world. But I do believe that the internal part of that and helping develop young men and having confidence is having, I don't know how many coaches are there on the Jazz staff? Would you guess 15?
Yeah. There's a couple rows of suits. Well, not suits anymore, but team gear. Team gear.
I'm thinking to myself, and I'm not there, and I'm sure they are doing this, but if they're not, it would be a big mistake to take these good coaches that have specific roles to help develop players, and the most difficult part is not having the playing time and opportunity to get that confidence. And so they haven't been playing those development leagues, and I think the NBA is doing a better job with that. But it's still a very difficult thing for guys that aren't physically ready. And so I would imagine with weight room or diet or whatever it might be, that's on the Jazz, and that's what they have to do when they draft a young man like that. They got to be committed to, changing his body, changing his mind, and maybe working on a 3-ball, whatever it might be. That's what they do. That's what they do full time.
That's a great question for Danny Ainge. How do you know when it's time to move on from a player? But you probably have better access to Danny than we do. So ask him and get back to us.
I will. I will ask him.
And get to the bottom of that. All right. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, joining us right here on The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. More on the conference finals and how much you're enjoying them coming up. David Smoke, host of On 365 Sports in Waco, Texas. The spring football tour continues. He'll bring us up to date on the Baylor Bears. That's all ahead. Stay with us.